Hello everyone, good afternoon. Today we will discuss about the question exercise part of the breathing and exchange of gases. So we have completed this chapter and this is included in your upcoming examination. So that's why today we will discuss the exercise part and question answering part of this chapter. Okay. So first question from this chapter, that is define vital capacity. What is vital capacity? Question number 1, define vital capacity. Give its significance. What is the importance of that in the human body? Give its significance. So question number 1, define vital capacity, give its significance. What is vital capacity? So vital capacity is the process through which the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. After a forced expiration, one person can take the maximum amount of the air inside the lungs. That is known as the vital capacity. Okay? And vital capacity means ERV, TV and IRV. ERV means excretory reserve volume, one person that can expire after forceful expiration. TV, tidal volume, that is the volume of air inspired or expired during the normal respiration, and maximum volume of air in the breath after the forced expiration. Okay, and IRV, that is inspiratory reserve volume. Okay, these three included in the vital capacity. So vital capacity means forcefully expired. So that's why how it is helped to you. This helps to you if there is any type of lungs problems in your body or not. It helps to diagnose any type of lungs disease and helps the doctor to treat that disease. That is the importance of the vital capacity. Okay. So the maximum volume of air, the maximum volume of air a person can breathe after a forced expiration. So this one is known as the vital capacity. A maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration, and VC means that is ERV plus TV plus IRV. If I will provide you this amount of this ERV, TV and IRV, and I will tell you that what is the vital capacity of a person, you can do sum of them and you can get the vital capacity. If it is the 1000, if it is 100, 1100, if this one is the 1000, so 1000, 2000 plus 1100, that one is the 3100 is the total vital capacity of a human. Okay. So this is very easy mathematical calculation, you can easily calculate and you can give the solution what is the vital capacity of a human body. Now what is the significance? What is the importance of the vital capacity in the human body? So significance, forcefully expired, forcefully inspired, that is obviously if you have some problem in your lungs, you cannot get forcefully inspired or expired. So by this forceful expiration, you can say that yes, your lungs is okay or not. Okay. Am I clear? Vital capacity of a person gives importance clues while diagnosis a lungs disease. Measurement of this capacity helps the doctor to decide about the possible causes of the disease and about the line of the treatment. Okay. So, first one, a person gives clues about lung disease and second one helps the doctor to diagnose to know about the possible causes of the disease. And diagnose. Okay. So, this one is the importance of the vital capacity, gives clues about the lungs disease and helps the doctor to diagnose about the possible causes of the lung disease. This is the significance, you can say that importance, that is the vital capacity of a human body. The second question is the state the volume of air remaining in the lungs. Question number 2. State the volume of air remaining in the lungs after a normal breathing. So, what is the name of this process, this system, that is the volume of air remain in the lungs, because when you expire it is not possible that all air goes out of your body. Some obviously, because there is no vacuum place in your body, obviously there some air must be present in your body. So, that is why the volume of the air remaining in the lungs after the normal breathing, what is called? This is known as the functional residual capacity. Okay, volume of air that remain in the lungs after a normal expiration. Okay, normal breathing, or you can say that after normal expiration. That is known as the FRC. Okay, that is functional residual capacity. If it is forcefully expiration, then the remaining of the air is known as the residual volume. Okay, and when it is just after the normal expiration, forceful expiration means that is related to the residual volume that present in your lungs after a forceful expiration. After the normal expiration, the air present in your lungs, that is known as the functional residual capacity. Okay, FRC. Functional residual capacity. That is FRC. FRC equal to ERV, expiratory reserve volume, plus RV, reserve volume. Okay, residual volume, these two. After expiration, so expiratory reserve volume, that is the maximum air a person can forcefully expire, and reserve volume means after the forcefully expiration the air remain in the lungs. So, these two included and form the FRC, functional residual volume. After a normal expiration is occurs also, and after the expiration the air present in your body, that is also known as the functional residual and functional residual capacity. Okay. So, if I will provide you, if ERV equal to 110, if RV ml, because it is air, if RV equal to 1000 ml, So what will be the FRC of a normal person? Obviously the sum of them, that is the 2100 ml is the FRC of a person. So read each and every definition of the ERV, IRV, TV, because these are very important. The short type, MCQ type, the short type mathematical calculation, all is this coming from that part. Okay, read this thoroughly in your upcoming examination. This one is the very important, you can get some question from that part, and you can say that, and you can obviously remind this short type of the formula which is formed by which type of the contents. Okay, and what is the sum of the FRC, what is the sum of the ERV, what is the sum of the tidal volume. So you can say from that and you can get solution of this question. Okay. Now move to question number 3. Diffusion of gases occurs in the alveolar region only, not in the other parts of the respiratory system. Why? So diffusion of only the alveolar portion of the lungs helps in the diffusion of gases, not the other parts. Why? Question number 3. Diffusion is possible only in alveolar region not in other parts. Why? Why only diffusion occurs in the alveolar region, not only the other parts? You know that because our diffusion only occurs in the alveolar part of the lungs, and our diffusion and the respiration or exchange of gases occurs only in the by the alveoli and the duct region. These two regions, alveoli and their ducts, are related to the exchange of gases, but the membrane that present in the alveola, that not present in the duct, and this membrane is only suitable for the diffusion, not the other parts. So that's why only diffusion occurs in the alveolar part, not on the other parts, because the thin membrane of the alveoli is only suited for the exchange of gases or for the diffusion, but the other parts are not structured just like that. They made by the thick material, that not the thin, any type of thin membrane present not in the duct. So that's why any type of exchange of gases does never occur on that part. Okay, this is the answer. The thin membrane of the alveoli, you can say that the thin membrane of the alveoli is suitable for diffusion, but the other parts are not structured to serve this purpose. So these are the reasons. So the only the exchange of gases or the diffusion occurs only in the alveoli, not in the other parts. Okay, clear everyone? Next question, the question number 4. What are the major transport mechanism for CO2? Explain how the CO2 carbohemoglobin transported through the blood. This is the mechanism. How? Okay? Explain. What are the major transport mechanism for CO2? How CO2 is transported through the blood in each and every part of the body, or through the lungs and then goes outside. Okay? Explain. You know that they form the carbohemoglobin. Okay? So what are the major transport mechanism for the CO2? Explain. The binding of the carbon dioxide. First, the carbon dioxide bind with the hemoglobin, that is related to the partial pressure of CO2, that is PCO2. You know that if the pressure is not present, so how the carbon dioxide binded with the hemoglobin? So binding of carbon dioxide with the hemoglobin is depend on the partial pressure of the CO2. The partial pressure of O2 is a major factor which can affect the binding. In the tissue, PCO2 is higher than the PO2, hence the more binding of carbon dioxide occurs in the tissue level. And in the alveoli, the PCO2 is lower than the PO2, so that's why dissociation of the carbon dioxide from the hemoglobin occurs there. So then carbon dioxide goes outside of the body. So this is the process of the carbon dioxide transport. Okay? So you can say that binding of carbon dioxide is related to the binding of CO2 is depend on the depends on the partial pressure of CO2 and O2. Both the pressure is affected. Okay? PO2 is the more effective in the helps to binding, because if PO2 is lower than the PCO2, then CO2 is more binding with the hemoglobin. Okay? So depends on the in the tissue. So the binding of CO2 depends on the partial pressure of O2 and CO2. In the tissue, PCO2 is higher than the PO2. Okay? So that's why what happened? Actually, the more binding of carbon dioxide occurs at the, so more carbon dioxide binding, CO2 binding occurs. So first one, the binding of CO2 depends on the partial pressure of CO2 and O2. In the tissue, PCO2 is higher than the PO2, so more carbon dioxide binding occurs in the tissue level. But PCO2 is lower than PO2 in alveoli. So dissociation of, that's why dissociation of CO2 occurs here. Okay, so this is the solution. Clear everyone? Now move to the question number 5. What will be the PO2 and PCO2? What will be the PO2 and PCO2 in the atmospheric air compared to this in the alveolar air? Obviously, you know that PO2 is higher in the atmospheric. What will be the PO2 and PCO2 in the atmospheric pair compared to those in the alveolar air? PO2 lesser, PCO2 higher. PO2 higher, PCO2 lesser. PO2 higher, PCO2 higher. PO2 lesser and PCO2 lesser. There is the two. PO2 higher and PCO2 lesser. PO2 higher, so that's why O2 enter inside your body and CO2 goes outside of your body. Okay, where is the sufficient oxygen is not present, so if it is higher in the outside, so then it goes inside. So that's why obviously the question answer 2, the 2 is the correct answer, that is the PO2 is higher, PCO2 is lesser. So this is the answer. So next there is a long answer type question, that is explain the process of inspiration under normal condition. How the inspiration occurs under the normal condition. The process of inspiration, how it is occurs in the human body. The process of inspiration under normal condition. Okay. So this is the question number 6. So first one, what happened? Obviously diaphragm and the muscles. You know that these two things are very important to lift up your diaphragm and the ribs and helps to extend and contract your thoracic chamber or cages. Okay, so that's why these two are very important for your inspiration. So first, inspiration is initiated by the contraction of the diaphragm. First, initiated by the contraction of diaphragm. Okay, this is the first. Next, the contraction of diaphragm increases the volume of thoracic chamber in antero-posterior axis. Okay, so the contraction of the diaphragm increases the volume of thoracic chamber in antero-posterior axis. When the contraction occurs, then the volume of the thoracic chamber increases. Contraction of diaphragm helps to increase the volume of thoracic chamber. Helps to increase the volume of thoracic chamber. Okay. Then next step, first step, that is the diaphragm contracts, then the thoracic chamber increased, then the intercostal muscles contracts to lift up ribs, okay, and the sternum. The next step, the intercostal muscles the external intercostal muscle contracts to lift up the ribs and sternum. The causes an increase in the volume of the thoracic chamber in the dorsoventral axis, okay. Then the thoracic chamber, first anterior posterior, then the thoracic chamber increases in the dorsoventral axis, okay. Increase the thoracic chamber in dorsoventral axis, okay. The overall increase in the thoracic volume results in a similar increase the pulmonary volume. So, when the thoracic volume increase, then the pulmonary, that is related to the lungs, you know that, then the volume of the lungs also increase, okay. Increase in the next step, increase in the thoracic volume helps in increasing pulmonary volume. Okay. Next step, when the pulmonary volume increases, decreases the intrapulmonary pressure to less than the atmospheric pressure. This pressure gradient forces the air from the outside move into the lungs and inspiration takes place, okay. So, when the pulmonary volume increases, then the intrapulmonary pressure to less than the decreases the intrapulmonary pressure to less than the atmospheric pressure, okay. So, because the atmospheric pressure is greater than the pulmonary pressure, so that is why air goes inside your body and the inspiration takes place, okay. So, this is the total process of the inspiration. Volume and increase the atmospheric pressure. Which helps the air goes inside the body. This is known as the pulmonary volume. Okay, this is the process of the inspiration. If there is no pressure gradient occurs, I always told you that obviously when goes inside, goes outside, diffusion, always they are related to pressure. If there is no pressure is created, they never move from one place to another place. Goes outside, goes inside, obviously there must be a pressure gradient is present that helps to movement of the air, goes inside and outside. Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone. This is up to further today. I will continue the rest of the part of this exercise in my next video. Okay. Bye bye everyone.